Listeners, welcome to the Business Method Podcast. And today we have the founder of a $3 billion startup on the show. His name is Paolo Tiramani, and he's the founder and CEO of Boxabl. Boxabl makes 375 square foot unfolding houses. And I say unfolding because that's exactly what they do. Literally, you take it off a truck and unfold it to have a really nice home. The unfolding of the house takes about an hour, fully equipped with a kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, television, living room, and all you have to do to get the utilities working is just plug it in. The houses don't need any special delivery equipment. It can fit on a normal flatbed trailer pulled by any vehicle, and given the small size, it can be delivered to almost anywhere you want it. You can literally have a house assembled in a single day that costs roughly around $50,000 starting out. And so far, this number may be incorrect, but 90,000 people or so have signed up to get one. There may be more than that. Paolo is joining us on the podcast today to chat about how he had this incredibly innovative business into a $3 billion company. Paolo, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Chris, very, very nice to meet you and your audience as well. It's absolutely terrific show.
Yeah, I love that, it's not often we get somebody on the show and we get to see the inside of the factory. And so for those people that are watching on video, you can see Paolo's factory in action right behind him as we're on the podcast, which is pretty cool. How big is the factory? You're in Las Vegas, and how big is the factory there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, folks love this shot. It's in our main conference room. It's sort of the vanishing point. Well, it seems to vanish into the middle of my head, but this factory is 300,000 square feet. So the larger numbers get a little abstract. I think that's about 6 or 7 acres under a roof. And this one, we call it Factory One, is an eighth of a mile long. And as big as it is, this is really still an R&D facility, for the main events, which will be upcoming, hopefully, with future factories.
How is this the only factory you guys have going now, or do you have other ones as well?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the only factory, we have currently, and we just have now Factory 2, which will be probably, we'll see. I'd like to see it in the 4 to 5 million square foot range. And we have, it's just mind boggling. And we have that in planning. And, we have a few candidates statewide, Texas, here in North Las Vegas. They've been fantastic to us. And, we'll see how it unrolls.
Yeah, Texas seems to be attracting a lot of people these days. I just lived in Austin for 2 years, and the amount of companies that are heading down that way. But this is really cool. So we're seeing in live what's happening in real time in the factory. And how many employees do you guys have working at this factory here?
So we're right around 200 employees just running one shift as we sort of warm things up. We've been, operational at this plant probably, it changes month by month, right? But I would say probably 7 or 8 months, we just turned on from zero. So we went from, Peter likes to say 0 to 1, which was quite traumatic, I can tell you. It's kind of childbirth. I actually can't imagine that, but if you can imagine staffing from a small group, from a core R&D group, to get this guy live was quite a challenge. So we've been here just about certainly less than a year operationally.
Okay, nice. And okay, so there's so much to work through with this company. It's absolutely fascinating. What really impressed me, so if you guys go to the website, boxabl.com, and just so you know the spelling, that's BOXABL.com, you can go and it shows right on the main page a video of how this process works. And it's basically, they take this kind of platform off of a flatbed truck, they put it on the ground, and it literally unfolds in front of your eyes to produce a house. And what's 375 square foot, right? So
yeah, exactly. Basically 20 by 20, something like that. Yep.
Yeah, and they're really nice inside. It feels like it's luxurious inside because there's, you have a flat screen TV, you have a bed, you have a little living room, you have a nice bathroom, the kitchen, and the refrigerator is in there and everything. And it's just like, it feels useful, if that makes sense, without any wasted space, from what I've seen in the videos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've got some super talented people here in terms of architecture and floor planning. And, we sort of get, I think, compared to tiny homes,
Uh-huh.
uh, this is our point of entry product. The casita is the smallest of the building shells that we'll be making, which is, 20 by 20 little square thing. Think
Yeah.
of it as a little Lego. And, that's the building shell. And then the configuration, our first configuration is this casita model, which you see online, which is the product you're referring to. And there are a lot of things you can do to make a small space feel pretty large. First of all, if you look at most tiny homes, which is what we'd be compared to with this model, they're typically 8.5 foot wide, 8 foot, 7.5 foot wide on the interior,
Yeah.
shockingly narrow with a low ceiling height. Maybe 8 foot or less. A typical home has a 9 foot ceiling height. So we have our interior dimensions, or our footprint is actually 19 by 19.
Okay.
So it's a good, generous size, and the ceiling height is 9.5 feet.
I saw that.
So yeah, we're here in Las Vegas. I live in a fancy condo on the Strip, and that fancy condo only has 9 foot ceilings. I feel like I should complain. And Casita has 10.5 foot ceilings. It also has 3 foot wide windows, 8 foot tall doors. That's 2 foot taller than a good size adult.
Yeah.
A tall adult, and full size appliances everywhere. Full size, huge refrigerator, and things like space planning. Very little lost core on the architectural side. There's no wasted corridors, things of that nature. We have one thoroughfare through the middle, and it's very generous. It's 4 foot wide because it's so efficient. So it feels very roomy. And the other things that our designers and architects paid attention to were the sight lines. Most of life is visual. We have other senses, but if you don't know where you are, and you close your eyes, you could be in a basement. You don't know where you are, right? So if you think about it, 80% of life, probably minimally, is visual, I would say. So what you can see matters, and how far you can see matters. So if you sit down and you can see the other corner of the total space, that feels very large. If you can sit down and look out of a window and get a longer sight line, that makes it feel large. We actually set all the windows and the doorknobs and everything a little on the tall side to make the individual feel small in the space. And you think, well, your instinct might be, well, why do I want to feel small? Well, when you're in a house, you like to feel small because then the house feels big, it feels protective. And so there are a lot of these emotional factors that are dialed in to the casita. And, we really go down to the sort of the granular level in terms of just really a passion for making sure that homeowner, prospective homeowner, is going to be very, very happy with their living day to day, when they wake up in the morning, go to bed at night, how they feel, about the whole space. So a lot has gone into the casita floor plan. And the public's certainly responded in part to that and other elements of the Boxabl product.
Yeah. And it when it comes to living, it's all about comfort and feeling, right? Because you could be in a place that's much smaller, but the design is better and it just feels really good. Like, I've traveled the world a lot, stayed in a lot of Airbnbs, and it's not about the size. It's, for me, it's always about the feeling that you have. And if there's good lighting, if there's good bedding and furniture, like, modern styled, and it makes you feel really good when you're in there, that's all that matters. And I think, especially in American society, like it's people focus on bigger, bigger, bigger. I've got to have the bigger house, or the bigger truck, or the bigger, piece of property or whatever. And at the end of the day, if you have a bunch of empty, wasted space that you don't use, and you've just got to fill it up with stuff that then you get attached to, what's the point? The kids have got a room full of toys that after a few years, they don't use any of those toys anymore. And it's just turns into wasted space. But Paulo, I want to ask you about, like, where did this come from? It's fascinating for me to see how technology evolves in, computers and with cars. And I haven't seen it in homes because I'm not directly in the home industry. But like, it seems like you guys are the Tesla of homes, in many ways. And so where did this all start?
Well, thank you for that. Keep talking. We absolutely, we
Tesla of
absolutely,
homes. Yeah.
yeah, we absolutely love that analogy. So, the genesis of the product started. My background is I'm an industrial designer, mechanical engineer, and we've hired technologists and futurists and focused on innovation and new product development, patents, mechanical patents, and we really set our minds to. So if your skill set is innovation, I'd liken it to an accountant. Let's say an accountant counts things. Pretty sure that accountant doesn't care what he counts. It's his job to count, right? So I'm going somewhere with this. So with the innovation side of things, it's not it shouldn't be, if you're a professional, it shouldn't be an aha moment where you say, oh my goodness, I've had this fantastic idea, let's monetize it. You say, well, no, it's our job to invent. So our goal was to be operators in a space rather than licensing or intellectual property. We wanted to be operators in a space, and we said, well, if we're going to get involved as operators, we need to find the biggest problem we can. The problem should include good works. We should actually be doing something useful if we can for America. I'm a nationalist. I love this country, but also the planet. I know that sounds terribly grandiose, but if you're starting with a blank sheet of paper and say, let's find a massive problem, you just throw everything in the bucket. So let's find an absolutely massive problem, and let's do what good works. It's going to require a lot of money. People need to monetize their money, investors and things. So it should be profitable. And let's start with the problem. So it actually took a couple of years, I believe it or not, just to ask the questions. We're sort of slow and methodical, but ever accelerating. So it took a couple of years just to ask the questions to find out what the biggest problem was. And we got down to a few. Actually, we got down to, automotive is one of them, and we realized that the scale and sort of entrenched the competitors, it was a non-starter, certainly not as brilliant as, Tesla and Elon Musk with far fewer resources. And building construction just stood out. And it just stood out. It just hit all the markers for us. And we were just checking these things off. And it's, things like housing crisis, a solid indicator of an economy's financial status. It's America or a foreign country. Housing starts as a measure of the economy. And then we're looking at it and we see with our marketing hat on and see that there's no brand, there's no national player, there's no global player, and we're looking at this and saying, why? Everything in our lives, everything I can see in your studio, everything you can see behind me, was built in a factory. Everything, right. And we call that post-industrial. Post-industrial just means built in a factory. And then we're looking at building construction. I know this sounds very simple as I explained it, but really. It was quite an aha moment for us to figure this out. And we looked at building construction and said, holy cow, this is pre-industrial marketplace. This is a pre-industrial marketplace, and a survey of that marketplace and the folks that were trying to put the product in a factory. When I say building construction, I mean buildings. I don't mean necessarily sort of like the building you see behind me, but sort of the belly of the snake in terms of most buildings most of the time, whether they're retail or residential, condominiums, mid-rise, and things like that. That's the bulk of the building construction marketplace. And here it is. It's pre-industrial, and it's literally built in a field. Mm-hmm. And companies are going in, assembling tools and labor and trades, and essentially assembling an open-air factory. Can you imagine anything worse than an open-air factory that's subject to heat and rain? And then they put up a product, and then they disband the factory. It's the height of inefficiency. And we're like, well, why is that? And obviously it's rather obvious because they're very big. Buildings are big, so they build them on site. They can't build them in a factory. And so we looked at the factory solutions and realized that essentially they're non-starters. And there are some bigger companies, but they're not even very big, and nobody even knows them. Berkshire Hathaway, for example, Warren Buffett owns. I actually can't remember which one they own. There's so many. They've all been in here. and nobody even knows their name. Apparently, even myself, that wasn't a setup. I actually can't remember their name. And so we looked at the factory solutions, and we're like, wow, they are they're using field materials and technologies. They're using bits of wood and pneumatic nail guns, all
Yeah.
human product. They're using old technology and putting it under a roof. So they haven't taken advantage of being under a roof and having sort of the giant machinery you see behind me. So that was strike one against them. And then the second strike against them was, we have national and global limits on traffic width, which is 8.5 feet, magic number, 8.5 feet. And then height is 13 foot off the blacktop, or 13.5 foot in Europe. So 8.5 by 13, let's call it that. And then all the factories, without exception, are building product that's 12 to 15 foot wide.
Mm-hmm.
So as a first pass look, these factories are putting under a roof old technology, building something illegal to ship, and then attempting to ship it. And then they're surprised when they can't have a reach that's more than perhaps a couple of 100 miles radius from their factory. So that was like, oh, okay, that's a problem. So this is sort of the genesis of the idea. And we said, wow, okay, so where did the idea come from? It came from starting with a problem, identifying a problem. And we looked at that. And if I just cap it, those statements there and say, aha, we got a big problem there. If we can fix that problem, and make building construction post-industrial, this can be one of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah.
We can do it in, time frame, relatively short order, 5 years, maybe 7 years. And it meets one of our sort of self-selected markers, which is to do some good.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense because you think about how homes are built. And my dad was in construction. And so I grew up around that industry. And really, they're not all that much differently built than they were maybe even 100 years ago. Like people have got
zero.
Yeah, you've got to bring the supplies, maybe more than 100 years. Like they've got to bring the supplies to the location, and they're using, maybe they have screw guns and a different bit of tool technology, and not hammer and nails as much. But they're building by hands, and they're taking months to build a home, months upon months, which there's a lot of stuff there. And you guys essentially have speedlined that. So when I was in Austin, I watched a home being built. It took about 5 months for a 4-bedroom home, maybe closer to 6, for a 4-bedroom home by the time everything was done and ready to sell. You guys have speedlined that to where now the casitas, which is the 20 by 20 model, that can unfold in a matter of hours and be ready to go. And then when you guys add, say 3 more on top of that, I would imagine just a couple days and it would be ready to go, right? Like you're providing a home in 2 days that costs, that takes 5 to 6 months for everybody else to build. That's mind blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. If we start to think about, post-industrial as opposed to pre-industrial, and what a consumer is willing to accept, obviously a pre-industrial marketplace and homes don't have to abide by the same modern consumer standards. The modern consumer expects an iPhone, and they're getting a wagon wheel. Excuse me, mixing my analogies. It's pretty rough.
Yeah.
So when you go into a post-industrial space, what a consumer should expect is to get it immediately, to get it at a fantastic price, to get it with a follow-through warranty, and to get it the way they want, right? Yeah. So you expect that if you buy a shirt from Amazon, and there's no reason why you shouldn't expect it, and more when you get a home, in this instance, from Boxabl. And so that means, we're shipping 8.5 foot by by the 13 foot. One of the aha moments as we actually started to dig in for solutions, which is a really big one, was that most homes are, I'm just going to use rough numbers, are about 2/3 empty. They're about 2/3 empty space. And not very expensive to build. And then about a third of it is what we call dollar dense, right? So it's got a lot of labor to finish out, and it's got a lot of fancy equipment like kitchens and fridges and things like that. And then we also realized that we can, if you look at any home, most of that, let's call it dollar dense, whether it's staircase, bathrooms, toilets, kitchens, boiler rooms, closets, that's about it. Homes are rather simple. That all pretty much can pack down into about a 6-foot space. So part of the Boxabl technology was, you know what, we don't need to fold this up like a box in its entirety. In fact, we don't want to. We want to just pack it down to 8.5 foot, and we want to leave the biggest core that's unfolded inside. And we realized we could get 6 foot. Then with 6 foot, we could put all of those aforementioned items and build them spectacularly efficiently compared to the field in a factory. Pack it up, ship it around the world. That's the plan. And it's sort of the gift that keeps on giving. When you solve one problem in one area with, let's call it a first principle, which is when something can't be sort of devolved any further, it's normally a pretty good principle and can often give benefits in other areas of other problematic areas of the business or solution. And with this dollar dense and not dollar dense, the knock-on effect, we were able to pack it down to 8.5 foot wide, ship everywhere. But the gift that kept on giving was when you unpack it, you're essentially tripling the volume. So now your shipping costs, apart from being legal, go into common infrastructure, shipping infrastructure, doesn't need permits and flag cars because it's not a wide load. When it arrives, it's like you shipped 3 trucks in one. So very, 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 very interesting. So we're able to ship a very large volume, and the goal of the company is to ship what we call a consumer grade product next day. People don't need their houses next day on Amazon Prime, ultimately, along with other with other distribution methods of sort of all of the above in Home Depot, etc. So it's really kind of mind shifting in terms of what I think folks should expect from their product, from their home. And we say it's a consumer product, and the standards with which consumer products get held to, which is extraordinarily high, should apply to homes as well.
You know what I was thinking of when you were talking about this is, say a young family all of a sudden finds out that, or a young couple, they find out they're going to have a baby, and they're, in a location, maybe they're in a small apartment and or in a place that's not optimized for a baby, and they realize they want to have a home, and the wife is saying, hey, let's get a home. It's time to get a home. And instead of going through that whole entire process of searching for a home or searching for a bigger place to live, and going to whatever location that is, in essence, you bring the home to them and you unfold it in a matter of, you have it there in a matter of days. Whereas even the rental process is a pain in the ass, because you've got to find an apartment, you got to make sure it's in the right place, or rent a home. You got to put a deposit down. You've got to go through all these steps and processes, where essentially, ideally, I think what you guys are going for is like pop on Amazon and the home will be to you within a week or something like that. What's the, I know you guys are on back order now. I think you had over 90,000 people request homes. Or is that still at 90,000? Or are you guys higher than that now, or where are you sitting?
Yeah. So we have, I think, over 100,000 reservations. I don't know what the number is. And so we look at reservations as an expression of interest. Some folks are just putting down a number. They're saying they want one. And other folks are developers saying they want 50 or 100 or 200. And so each of those singular expressions makes that range. So in terms of the ceiling for sales, there is no visible ceiling for sales. There is a ceiling, of course, but it's just not visible
Yeah.
from where we are. We can sell millions of casitas, and it will ultimately be a very small part of the selection of the Boxabl products. And just to give you an idea of those relative numbers, there are 1.5 million new housing starts, I think, annually in the US, and that's just the US. It's not global. And let's even call it, a 1,600 square foot single family home, which would be fairly modest.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent to 4 casitas in terms of volume.
Right.
So that would be a total of 6 million square feet of addressable market size in the US. And this, huge factory behind me might be able to make 7,000 units a year. 7,000 units a year. So out of perhaps 6 million, if you compare apples to apples. So no real visible ceiling on sales.
When you guys get in full flow operation, what's the goal of delivery time from order to delivery and setup time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. So right now, we still got our training wheels on while we deliver the product. The product should be delivered, first of all, just to go through that process. Our product does not need to be delivered with a pickup truck with a big rig. Big rig and is $250,000, and a flatbed is $100,000. Our product can be delivered with a dually, which is $50,000 or $60,000, and our own trailers. I think we have $7,000 in material, so you can see the cost savings there.
Yeah.
So that driver, when he drops it off, whatever the travel time is, once we have inventory, that driver can also drop it off without any assistance. No crane is required. No forklift is required. He's able to just drop it off by himself. He does not need flat land. Just says, where do you want it, lady? Just point to a corner and I'll drop it off and be on my way. That saves money. And then to put the product on the site, you require either a telehandler, which is a large forklift. You don't require a crane. The certifications for a crane driver are much higher than for a telehandler, which is just big forklift, basically.
Yeah.
You can also get those big forklifts into tighter spots. We'll be able to put into place up to a 2-story Boxabl, which is a pretty big, large part of the addressable market. And then the unpacking, we're working now. This hasn't been fully developed. How do you unpack these things? These are big, heavy things, right? So we're doing it with a crane right now. But our team here has developed. It sounds completely insane, but we developed an unpack mechanism that is weighs I think less than 70 pounds, is UPS shippable, does not require electricity, and it's just a sort of Rube Goldberg mechanism that bolts to the Boxabl shells, and two guys in about an hour will be able to unpack a box with no crane. And if it's a large community, if it's a larger development, developers are obviously very interested. They can buy that piece of equipment for a couple of $1,000s. All consumers will be able to rent it from us, and hence the UPS shippable part. So what does that take from beginning to end? But that would be sort of the physical delivery of the product would look something like that, and just bring it more into a consumer type space. It's really sort of it changes the way you can think about your home in terms of real estate. Real estate means the product on the land, and it can be very unempowering, because once you put your product on the land, you're kind of tied to the land. Well, no, not with Boxabl. If you're fed up with your state, your municipality, or your neighbors, you can do that process in reverse.
So you can fold it back up and then move somewhere else if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Pack, unpack. Our prototypes here have been, certainly more than 100 times, and that's just the prototype. So we do think of it as a sort of a broad range of use cases, from putting down a permanent structure with modular code. Currently, we're in the process of writing our own code. Currently, modular code is the highest code in the land in the USA. We'll also be certifying as an RV, as what's called the park model, which arrives on frame. So it's all of the above. I think if you have a product that is superior to then all the current building codes that we have nationally, which is also fragmented, by the way, state by state, then it would be good to have basically a national code. So it's interesting, and we have a long way to go.
Some more stats that I really liked about this, Paolo, is it's rated for up to hurricane speed, so it's built very sound and strong. It can hold loads of snow, so it doesn't matter the climate that you're in. Also very energy efficient. Utilities run on average for the basic model $28 per month, which is ridiculously cheap. And then depending on the financing, which I think you guys are wanting to start offering the financing, can get down to low as $250 per month. $250 per month, you get your own mobile house. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have any new technology, you can't just be as good as. It's never going to get traction because we've got entrenched players that have market share. They have customers that are used to using the existing technology. So, to really enable a new technology, the technology itself has to at least have a path to be significantly less expensive than current technology, and it has to be leagues better. So that's what we're attempting to do. And so when we look at the building codes, we think they're all a bit of a joke, actually. And so we're significantly stronger. Hurricane, we're Florida rated for wind speeds and things of that nature. And it is our plan at some point to lobby the federal government for a Boxabl building code, which we hope would be, the gold standard. So you can have it all. You can have, quote, a mobile home, as you correctly state, that arrives and packs and leaves, but it's also much better than a standard stick-built home. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay, I'm super curious about how one goes about the process of creating a company like this. And you guys are fairly new in the marketplace. It's say people are out there with technology that they think can change the world, similar to Boxabl. They see a gap in the marketplace like you did, and they want to go about the process of implementing it. Can you give us kind of a timeline on and the things that you did in order to get to where you guys are today? Fundraising, looking for partners to collab with. I know you came in, you're an entrepreneur for a long time, so you came in with a lot of experience under your belt. So this isn't like brand new territory for you, but maybe if people are listening out there and they have ideas similar to this, maybe like a process that you guys went through so that they can, do it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in no particular order, I would say the first thing is to address is it is extraordinarily hard. It's extraordinarily difficult. And, the chances of not getting traction are probably in excess of 99%. So it is an unreasonable thing to do in the first place. Any successful venture, really, I think is a thing to attempt to do. So perhaps you have to be a little bit unreasonable sometimes to get things off the ground. Secondly, there are ways to grow businesses today that we didn't have yesterday. Specifically, you grow business small and organically, get to profit early, which constrains your growth. And then in a modern world, if the idea is strong and powerful enough, you can delay profit to scale much faster.
Right.
And with the public markets and the public. So this company, we don't we don't have time to grow it organically over, like our partners at D.R. Horton, for example, one of the finest building companies in the world, just invested in us. Unbelievable company. It took half a century to develop that company to take a leadership position. Well, we don't have half a century. I think personally, I don't have half a century. So that's number one, just to really acknowledge that. And if I'm offering advice, I would just caution it with the fact that we're very early in our arc. It's been a very explosive arc to date, and it's been a very singular and unusual arc. And I don't think we could have done it with other products that we've patented and invented in the past. I think that this has captured the public's imagination, the world's imagination, as a solution to a massive problem. So we had the wind to our back with the scale of the idea. So I think that was very important. Other things that got the public's attention, which we had no clue, would be the Unfoldable. Probably one of the things maybe captured you when you just click on it and you say, what the F is happening? Can I say fuck that? What the hell is happening here? I've never seen anything like this. So, I liken it to a song that you like, and then there's a hook to the song, goes blah, 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 and then boom, boom, boom. And it's just the hook of that song. And I think when folks see our video, that's the hook of the song. And it just captures them enough to keep watching. And then they typically will internalize it and say, I could use this for, and then we know we've got them. We know we've got a supporter and a fan, possibly an investor. So that's very, very interesting. So I do think we're in a unique position. I don't want to make it sound easy. And in terms of the money raising, it's really got a chicken and egg situation. And any investor is going to find this if they go to outside sources for money. So you might go to angels, to VCs, and you may present your idea with a PowerPoint or a prototype or two. And the difference between the money's valuation, say the VCs or an angel, and the founder's valuation is typically there's going to be a big spread there, and I think that's very normal. And mostly, I would side with the VCs. You haven't done anything yet, and you think you're worth all this, and we don't think you are. We'll take 80% of your company for a very small amount of money. You're going to run out of cash. So you typically have a pretty big spread in valuation, and that's certainly what happened to us. We had friends come in, VCs come in. I'd put in a few $1 million just to get things, visualized and see if we really had anything that we could have some traction with. And then my business partner, Galliano, came to me and said, I think we could crowdfund this. And I'm like, what? I'm like, isn't that for like fruity flavored drinks? They raised $1.5 million, and we're trying to change in the world. And really, you think? He goes, yeah. So we tried the crowdfunding, and in no particular order, we just went on and just blew the doors off, and it was shocking to us. With WeFunder and Start Engine and I think Republic and a few others. Don't quote me, although I just quoted myself, frankly. But and in general scope, we went on, closed them out in a couple of days. Broke all their records. Wow. Mostly, yeah. It was really quite shocking. We're like, oh wow, this is interesting. And
how much did you guys crowdfund?
So I think I have to be very careful what I say because of the SEC, because we're a public company, we get audited. I think we just crossed in total $100 million.
Wow.
Of revenue. That's between the Reg A. Reg A Plus, for your listeners, is basically crowdfunding net worth under $1 million, where you don't have to prove assets, and then accredited investors, which I think is about $1 million you've got to show net worth. And so I think that's changes your mindset. We need much more money than that. We're now looking to raise maybe $800 or $1 billion with a B, because that's what the company needs to scale. These are big factories doing big things. So we were very unique because the idea proved to be so big, and the investors are more fans than investors, and we take that very, very seriously. And we take their really, and I use this word on purpose, we take their love, very, very seriously.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things happened in our particular sort of arc. So that was just one inflection point that we sat. Our plan was like, let's put up a small factory. Let's build a couple of hundred ADUs, which is accessory dwelling units, to changing the laws in California and other states to allow these backyard dwellings. And we can take our building technology, which I haven't spoken too much about yet, and the smallest building shell, configure it as an ADU and put it out there, see if folks like it, know. And then so we got this reaction from investors, and the investors are also fans and putting down reservations. We said, oh wow, and then so you do get a bit of luck in there as well. Really successful people, successful ventures, they get everything, and then they get luck as well. And luck isn't mystical; it's just odds. It's like playing cards, and you get a bunch of good cards in a row. And it's not mystical. It's just odds, and odds is luck. But you put yourself in a position to, create that luck as well. You bring yourself to the table, if you want to continue the analogy. So that was really good. And then the second inflection point for us is we got a call from the U.S. military, rather eccentric gentleman. You know who you are if you ever watch this. And he said, "Man, I love your products, and I'm getting you an order from the military government." And we're like, okay. And at this point, we're fielding a lot of calls from eccentric people promising the world, And so we said, sure. And anyway, this gentleman came through, and he came through with 156 units for the federal government.
Wow.
For a very good cause. We just finished delivering it last week. It's a major milestone for us. So I don't know if I'm allowed to. So I won't say where it's going, but it's really for a great cause. That's something that's very much in the part of the national identity. As a tragedy, fortunately, and this helps to alleviate a little bit of suffering. Hopefully, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
And I remember we said, oh, okay, we're not going to build a couple of hundred. We need to build a bigger plant.
Yeah.
Because the money's coming in. We have an expression from the federal government that did in fact turn into an order, and we have maybe at that point 30,000-40,000 what I call expressions of interest or reservations. And we said, oh, okay, better just scale this up a little bit. So we stood up this first factory, which originally was 172,000 square feet. We've just taken up another 130, I think, to enlarge it. And it was pretty wild early days, which was only a couple of years ago, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
But I do remember standing in this space behind me, completely empty, no lights, nothing. And the military every couple of months is coming down. And with really just straight shooters, frankly. And I remember standing pretty much right about here, looking down at this factory, and there's a couple of colonels, Colonel Wendy and a couple of others, and a bunch of other military people. And, I'm saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do the other. And they're going, uh-huh. I'm like, what the hell? And eventually I turn to them and I'm like, guys, we're a startup. And I'm not saying it out loud, but I did say, guys, we're a startup.
Uh-huh.
And the second half of that comment is like, you're looking at an empty, stone cold empty factory that doesn't have electricity, with a guy that you just came from an R&D lab,
right,
with a funny accent, and you're seriously just gonna give us an order out of the. Anyway, I didn't say any of that. But
you were thinking it though.
Right. I gave them the lead in.
Yeah.
I gave them they're like, yeah, sure, let's go for it. Okay, all right. So
wow.
So that was very important. So we said, look, we can hang a lot of stuff off this. It provides revenue, provides credibility. Let's deliver on time. And actually, we delivered, I think, a day early We did, with the pandemic, we did get a couple of changes on the delivery date, but ultimately we delivered a day early, or 2 days early, just a few weeks ago.
Wow.
And 156 units. We had a little celebration there. So, that was the arc. And then the other thing is the social media for us has been absolutely massively important. Going back to how do you build a company? We're not focused on profit, which is not a horrific thing to say to all our many investors, because we're focused on the long-term viability of the company, which allows us to scale early on, not worry too much about profit, try not to lose too much money, and get to an inflection point, we believe. And that belief is strengthened every day as we keep running our Excel spreadsheets, that as we scale the building shells, which is the Boxabl technology, which is basically these boxes, gets to a point where our cost is so affordable. And we will pass that on as a good works, for profit, but good works company, that I don't think folks are really going to believe what we can deliver these building shells for. I think everybody else is going to be looking and saying, how can they even make it for what they're selling it for?
Right.
And we'll sell it with healthy margins, but it does require massive scale and a massive amount of engineering. It takes a massive amount of engineering to take something complicated and make it simple. And that's what we're doing. The level of rationalization at the company, we got super smart people here, from Daimler Chrysler and Boeing and aerospace. There is an R&D and a product philosophy to drive down the cost of things to their ultimate sort of simplicity, lowest number of unique parts, and I mean it's a whole thing. And so that's sort of been the arc. And I would say that with this particular project, we've been fortunate enough to follow the ambitions of others, if I can say that, in terms of scale. And we say we're not meeting our obligations, our fiduciary duty as principals, if we don't scale up, our expectations. Right. And then the final thing I'll say is, with thousands of investors, I think we have 15 or 20,000 investors. I'm not sure about the exact numbers. So we are, technically a public company, why the valuation is so high. Our investors are our fans, are on our pre-order list, and we set things up. We are a design company. I'm an industrial designer, probably first and foremost. So everything has to be beautiful. Can't stand anything that's ugly. So the studio is unbelievable. The factory is unbelievable. And we consciously set up factory tours modeled on Disney. When I say that, it's like Jurassic Park. Yeah. Okay. We have, doors that open like this. And the customers come in and have to put on full PPE, which is just costuming them. At this point, and they get an electric car with a glass roof, and somebody goes around with a mic. And we have characters. We have a character called Frank. Wow. We have. They drive around the factory. The factory's fully bannered. It's fully striped like a village street. We don't need to stripe a factory as a village street to run an efficient factory. We're doing it for our customers, and I think that's a big part of it, because they then go out on social media. We have a roundabout, like a highway roundabout at the end of the factory where the car turns around. We've got AstroTurf on there, and we're about to put up, for example, a hitting wall where customers can get out and swing a hammer and hit one of our panels to see how strong they are. So we're going into sort of experience things, and we have a store. And everything. So it's the whole thing. It's
experience.
It's the whole experience. And then the final piece of the puzzle is, my business partner Galliano and I maybe a little bit eccentric. We have a fairly decent sense of humor, sort of the sense of the absurd. And so there's a lot of things that happen on social media that we do that are just fun. And a generation ago, you'd be wasting time and energy and resources to do those things, and you wouldn't do them. But today, it actually makes tremendous business sense to get the word out, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and do it because perhaps we are a little eccentric, and I think it drives the whole culture here. This is sort of a vibe, if you like, of energy here, and I think that customers, prospective investors respond to that, and then we're extraordinarily open. We're really, really frank and open. Of course, we're a company. Of course, we have to keep certain items confidential, but we prefer not to because, we're on this path. This is explosive growth, and we just share, the good, the bad, and the fabulous.
Yeah.
As we go along.
I've noticed how engaging people become and how much they become fans when a company is like that, transparent like that, because you all of a sudden become, you want to support, like the supporter side of people come out when they feel invested in a company or a part of a company, even if they're not, maybe they're just like, they share the stuff on social media, and they're rooting for you. You're like their sports team, right? And they're like, yeah, we want to see Boxabl, get to the next level and become this world-changing technology. And it's you sharing the creation of Boxabl and then the experience you're engaging people in when they come to see the factory and everything is, I think it's ingenious by far, where so many entrepreneurs kind of miss out on those engaging little things that can make a huge difference. I'm curious, I think marketing is your specialty, but I'm curious like where you get that from. Is that a superpower of your own, or is that something that you and the team you do by surrounding yourself with the right people? Have you done stuff like this before that really pulls people in like that?
I just say sort of no to all of the above, but I can tell
Okay.
I can tell you the secret sauce. Galliano, I would say, is really the marketing genius and the force behind that. And it's a very interesting partnership. I have with him. We have similar view on life, similar outlook on life. A couple of real freedom-loving, frank and open individuals with a significant overlap in duties here. And I think we both take care of the day-to-day and even the current day engineering. And then in terms of the money side and marketing, he really is handling that to an extraordinary level, and probably on the other side. I'm not talking about current day R&D. Everybody pitches in on that, but the real sort of futurist version of the whole big picture. I'm sort of probably handling that, and that's probably our division of duties. And I really think we just stumbled across the fact that we had a product that was so engaging and visually marketable that we just had to sprinkle in our own sort of brand of eccentricity, and along with some pretty decent prowess in terms of money raising. We had, those early VCs who just nice conversations, and they said, at those early days, well, you want too much for your company,
Yeah.
Now a number of those have come back in, and of course bought in at a much higher valuation that we were offering in those early days, which they thought was too high.
Yeah.
And that's fine, by the way, and they're fine with it, and it's all good because we've sort of proven ourselves to a certain point that gives them the comfort to make an investment. But we are unique in the space. We are a technology company first and foremost. In really, I would call it an analog space, right? It's hammers and nails, not for Boxabl, but for the rest of the industry, and that's reflected in the valuation as well. We are frankly sort of hot and sexy,
Yeah.
and valued as a tech company, and we should be valued as a tech company. We have again, please don't quote me. Hopefully the SEC doesn't see that. I think we have something like 65 mechanical patents. I think
Okay.
good partners, D.R. Horton, invested in the company. I think they've got zero.
Oh,
And
wow.
they're the biggest company in the world, which tells you something. And then in terms of PE ratios, if you look at a Tesla, and I have no idea on the PE of Tesla, I'm sure it's probably around 40 or 50 or something like that. One of the largest home building companies in the world has a PE value of 5 or 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And it's just, and they're such a fine company. So it's just, the markets are a value of future growth.
Yeah.
And future growth for Boxabl boggles our mind, frankly.
Yeah.
And we adjust probably every 3 months to the scale of the venture we're doing, the fact that we're proving a scalable solution that can really fix a major problem on Earth.
Yeah.
And we have to get there just as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
There's no hanging around, which means we have to do a lot of things in parallel rather than in series, which is maybe good for your audience as well.
Yeah.
You can do things in series and you can figure one thing out and say, okay, and that takes you to the next step, and you need the answer from number 1 to go to step number 2. But it takes a long time and you spend less money, but then there's present value of money. So maybe it's costing you really more money if you're losing market opportunity over time, but maybe if you don't fix the problems, you can't speed it up to get access to the money. We've been fortunate enough to be able to capitalize ourselves early, which means we can do things in parallel rather than in series. So what does that look like? It means we do everything at once, which sounds completely bonkers. It is a little bit, but we're scaling an operation massively while we're building out software teams, mechanical engineering teams.
Yeah.
Sales forces. We don't have a final product yet. We're planning a 4 million square foot factory as a small regional factory. So you run really, really fast, and you spend more money that you need to, although we haven't spent that much money in the scheme of things to get where we're going. We do spend more money than you need to get there, a lot quicker,
Right.
to get to scale, a lot quicker. So that's what we've been, fortunate enough, to be able to do in terms of trying to get to scale.
In regards to speed of growth, Paolo, I see a lot of entrepreneurs that, for whatever reason, they just have a hard time handling the growth of their companies, right? And almost to like where they're the bottleneck, the company could grow much faster if they got out of their own way, if they got the right people in there to help them out. Sometimes their just mentality around business and business growth can't handle, the growth that they're having. And it's sad to see because a lot of times they could go so much farther and they really hold themselves back. And I'm curious, like, you guys have had a massive amount of growth in the past couple of years. Any tips or recommendations to the entrepreneurs out there on how to handle rapid growth as a leader of a company?
Oh my God, that is such a great question. And I'll give a postscript at the end about what our plans are. But absolutely. And I think the two fundamental things are, if you find yourself in a position where your company is scaling very quickly, you need brutal honesty. Mm-hmm. You need brutal honesty. You need introspection. You need to be able to be honest with your team around you, and you need to encourage, people can be, kind of scared of you, to speak to you frankly, and you have to encourage that. So we have a whole philosophy of that comes out of, R&D and creation sort of philosophy. So you have to be brutally honest, number one. And number two, you can't give up.
Okay.
I mean, most people fail because they give up.
Yeah.
So you hear never, ever, ever give up. You just got to, I liken it to this. You just put your head against that wall and you just keep pushing. So you need to be brutally honest, and you have to never give up. And then sort of diving into some of those subsets, and what that means is, everybody's got their skill sets, right? Nobody's good at everything, and we're all horrifically flawed. You have to really look at that and say, you know what? Just because I'm building this, just because I'm driving the bus, doesn't mean that I am suddenly an expert in marketing or automotive style production line. And just because I'm sitting at the head of the table doesn't mean that I'm right, or people should do, what I say. So I think you just have to really take a breath and just do those things and get the support. And for entrepreneurs that are used to doing everything from, making the coffee to making the copies or whatever else, it does require an adjustment. And it's really a month by month adjustment of a reassessment of roles. I may have been called a control freak in the past. I'm not sure. I may have heard that somewhere or not. It's more of a first principle thing, not a control thing. But, you have to build those teams, and you have to say, you know what, I'm going to get the most brilliant guy I can. I'm going to put him in. He's going to have a half a dozen people reporting to him. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to talk to him maybe once a week. And I have to hire the right guy. And that's a skill set I may or may not have in terms of interviewing and things like that. So that's just, one example. And then I think the other example, and you see this with companies out there, is when it's time to let go of the reins, right? So for Galliano and I, we're absolutely not there. Fuck off, I'm holding the reins. Galliano's holding the reins, leave us alone. We're doing a wonderful, wonderful job. There is a pitch that won't be. So right. We're the entrepreneurs, we're growing the thing, and we genuinely believe we're the best people for the job, and we weren't. If we didn't think that, we would make a change and get in additional management. I do think that there is a point that the company, I don't know when that happens, still super, super early days. We're on the path to the on-ramp. Yeah, we're not even on the on-ramp. We're not on the launch pad. We're way before that. So we've got a ways to go. But there comes a point where I believe that Boxabl, when these foundational principles are all developed and installed, and we have the three sizes of building shell, configurations, the software, all of the infrastructure, the financing, the configurability for customers, empowering customers, vertically integrating a lot of the resources from the electronic to the physical, and scoping out the architecture of the whole system, not the architecture of the house. And everybody knows our name. I don't know that Galliano, at that point we become a massive, massive logistics company. And I don't think Galliano and I will have the significant interest and all-consuming passion that we have today. Yeah. I know for sure I want. So do we exit? Do we take a board position? But we will not be the bottleneck. We've spoken about this. We will not be, the bottleneck for the company. It's really a little too early for us to think about that. Galliano likes creation of businesses in the sort of the Wild West end of the business space. And this is for sure one of those. I'm basically, a guy with a box of crayons that likes to design stuff. They're really nice colors, very edible. And, I don't know what my level of interest is. At that point, I do the CDO duties and I do them passionately, but they're certainly not my first passion. I get off on inventing stuff. And when it's invented, I actually lose interest quite rapidly. So to answer your question more concisely, I think there is a time when founders move on. If you look historically, Google did it famously. Was it Brin and Sergey? I don't know them, but they hired Schmidt. I think it was Schmidt did a good job for a while there. Mm-hmm. Jobs, due to his own mortality, unfortunately, hired probably the most epic in my opinion, I mean, multi-talented, but his core is logistics, um, and Tim Cook. And I mean, what a staggering foresight
Right.
Jobs had to hire Tim Cook, not as a swashbuckling innovator, but as a staggeringly competent steward
Mm-hmm.
of that company. I mean, it really was mind-blowing, foresight. So there are some very, public examples. So I don't believe we will be the bottleneck, but while we ride through the Wild West of the explosive sort of atomic growth that we're seeing, I think he and I, my partner and I, pretty good stewards ourselves for the time being.
Nice. I'm going to get one more question out of you, and we're going to wrap up here, Paulo. I'm fascinated by how high performing entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, go about their day through different types of daily routines. Maybe even biohacks, mentalities, mindset, all these things. And I'm always trying to get more and more about what everybody is doing out there to perform on a better level. So I'm curious, you're a seasoned entrepreneur now running this incredibly innovative company. What is your, I guess if you could say, I know your day to day, it's probably pretty different and crazy for you, but do you have any routines or things you do on a regular basis that are your pillars to kind of keep you grounded throughout you growing and leading companies?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, I struggle like every other human being on the planet, on a daily basis, from waking up to going to sleep to sometimes not wanting to do things and stay motivated and, horrifically flawed human being, just like we all are.
Brutal honesty there. Brutal honesty.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
and
true.
So, for me, I think, speaking personally and perhaps for your audience, I think you have to roll with the way you're wired. You have to roll with the way you're wired. I mean, I understand numbers, I'm an engineer, but I can't stand looking at them. I can't stand looking at an Excel spreadsheet. I can read contracts. We've won some pretty good legal battles in the past by being pretty wily with contracts, and I can read them. I don't want to read them. So you have to figure out how you're wired. I have really a very unstructured existence today because things are changing literally month by month. So if I then had to find a common thread through my personal life and my personal day and what I need to accomplish here, the first thing is that there is nothing, there is nothing that needs to take up my time more than Boxabl. And of course, my loved ones are more important than Boxabl, but as long as they're all doing fine, thankfully they all are, I have nothing else more important to think about than the success of this company. So that's number one. You got to clear the plate. If you've got young kids, you're going to have to balance that, and that's fine. And then you got to just go with the flow. I mean, I tend to wake up around 6 a.m. So by 6:30, I'm in the kitchen just taking care of emails. That's great. Get them out the way. I try not to do the socials stuff, which is part of the business model. Don't particularly need to tweet every day, and I have folks that help manage that and respond. But that's just 7 p.m. at night. I get a summary and I go through and answer anything that needs to be answered. So I just sort of clear the day. And then it's pretty unstructured. Every day or two, there are significant things happening, people visiting. It just blows my mind who visits, famous, not famous, big power players, massive corporations, opportunities that we have to field. When I get to the office, I just presume that my day is not going to be my own. My day is not going to be my own. I just give it up, and I just say, fine, whatever.
Okay.
And so one of the things that's been very useful to me, there's apps like Calendly, is massively useful, where when somebody wants to see you and you say, yeah, let's get together, you just send them a link and say, find a time that's suitable for you. Yeah. It's polite. It gets booked, and then you show up, and that's really, really a big time saver. For me personally, in terms of workload, my apart from contracts negotiation and then just general stewardship at the pointy end, along with Galliano, which really is just a lot of talking. You just talk. You talk in-house counsel, just talk. In terms of work, you just crack open a laptop and whatever your skill is. I cannot do that here. Yeah. I cannot do that here. So I will take. It's not time off, but guys know that I'm like, yeah, call me. I'm not coming in for 10 days because I need to open my laptop and I need to open SolidWorks and I need to do engineering. And, my particular process for engineering is I have to fiddle around for 2 hours just to futz around before I get my head in the game. Yeah. And then if I'm interrupted and I go back to that task, which is for me is pretty deep thinking, it takes another couple of hours to get back in the task. Yeah. We have engineer here, one of our sort of co-founders here, Kyle, is an animal. He just sits down at his desk and he's at 95%, 98% within 60 seconds. Wow. It takes me 2 hours. Yeah, so I don't show up. And then just on the personal side, to get a little older, you just have to balance things out, with machines, right? With physical things made of blood and guts, and you got to keep it healthy. So for me, I try and get to the gym most days. It's definitely at least 50% for my mental health and 50% for my physical health, which becomes increasingly important. So I think that physical activity is poor man's psychotherapy, but it also has it's everybody can go to a gym, you can go to a Y. I think it's extraordinarily important, and I think that's very, very important to do. Clears my head, do a lot of business thinking while I'm there. I don't have any trainers or anything like that because they're going to interrupt my thinking. So so that would be just my typical day. It's very unstructured. It's very variable. There is no set schedule. There cannot be any set schedule because Boxabl itself is an explosion. It's a controlled explosion. But, that sounds like an oxymoron. But it is an explosion. So you just have to move very, very quickly. And I don't know who else could scale this quickly and where we're going. And the trajectory is getting more vertical as we go. So we're definitely heading into a rather uncharted territory. You mentioned Tesla before. If you look at, these companies, Tesla, Google, Apple, I'm not comparing ourselves directly to them, but just in those early days, they took way, way longer. They gave up way, way more of the company. And they developed far, far slower than we're developing. Now, those were slightly different times, and there are slightly different resources today. But this really is just a rocket ship, and everyone's hanging on, trying to just contribute for the whole thing. So yeah, unstructured with, I would say, sort of the gym as a tow line, as a sort of a daily thing to do, or most days I would say. Just to get through the day. And then finally, there is no work-life balance. It's life. And I hate that expression. It's life. If you're not here and willing to give everything and commit, we don't want you. It's your life. You're going to spend more time here than you're going to spend with your family. And you go ahead and love your family more. And please do. And you'd be weird if you didn't. But this is not your family, but it is your professional family, and you're going to spend more time here than you do at home. So you may as well really, really commit. A little bit easier for me, obviously, because I can come and go as I please. But it's not, this is what I do in my personal life, and this is what I do in my work life. It's my life. It's my life, and it's just super passionate. And I think most entrepreneurs and your listeners might look at it. And if they're really thinking, well, I just need to put in this many hours a day, maybe it's not for them. So you just have to look at it and say, this is my life.
Yeah. I love that. Takeaways: if you're running $1 billion company or a stay-at-home parent, use Calendly. Huge hack.
It's great.
Exercise is poor man's psychotherapy. Love that. and make it all your life. It's not separate. So very well put. You know what I've really liked about this, Paolo, is like, one, you're very relatable. Like, it's easy to connect with you, and I appreciate that. But also that you're transparent about what you guys are going through. Like, this is something very unique that you're building here, and it's unlike anything that has happened before. Similar, there's some overlap, but in many ways, it's very, very unique and new territory. And being open about that and making people your fans, I think it's such a smart play. I became a fan as soon as I saw the website with that unfolding house. And then talking to you, I've become even a more fan. So when I'm coming to Vegas, I'm going to come on your tour, and I'm going to bring some people as well, and hopefully get some more investors but you guys, I really recommend checking out Boxabl, their website, what they have going on. I wanted one as soon as I saw it, and I think a lot of you guys will as well. So, Paolo, man, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your tips and tricks and wisdom with us. Any final words of wisdom before we part, and also where people can find you at?
Sure. Boxabl, no E on the end. We are accepting investors now. We're very grateful to everyone. I would say just on the money side, the plan is the company needs to scale massively quickly. The crowdfunding has been staggeringly good for us, really shockingly good. There is a place for institutional money as we get into the billions that we need to raise. Our next raise will be 800 billion, whatever it is, as I mentioned earlier. If you feel it's the right investment for you, go ahead and take a look. We do plan to, just for our existing investors, I do want to say that we do plan to SPAC or IPO sooner or later. That just means that investors can monetize their money, that they can cash out some part or reinvest, whatever they want to do. That is an obligation. That is a fiduciary duty of ours to serve our investors, but it's all copacetic because there are the sort of three masters we serve. Our investors, to monetize them, all of our employees at Boxabl get shares, get stock options, to be more accurate. That includes the guys on the factory floor, right down to the kid pushing the broom. We're very serious about that everybody here who pushes and works hard should be rewarded significantly in a monetary way in the future after we've had success. And last but certainly not least, Boxabl needs massive amounts of cash to meet its obligations for scale. So that will be happening in the future. And I will say, if you are fucking brilliant, there is a job here for you in pretty much any capacity. But revert to the first point, you have to be effing brilliant. And I would encourage folks to submit their resumes to hiring@boxabl.com in any capacity. Be prepared to not see your family or your girlfriend and work, or boyfriend, and work and work very, very, very hard indeed. And finally, if you do choose to do that and come in, you're successful. It's not a horrible place to be, Las Vegas. It's not a terrible place to be.
No, it could be worse places for sure. Paolo, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing everything with us. I'm raving about this, and I'm going to share it with a lot of people as well. So, man, thank you. I appreciate it, Paolo.
Chris, super nice to be with you. Absolutely love the show. I really, really enjoy the podcasts.
Good. Yeah. Thank you so much, Paolo. Listeners, thank you guys for tuning in once again, and we'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye, everybody.